Hi, Yolanda. It's so wonderful to have you back on the Everyday Mystic, our first recording, which often happens when spirit, the greater good, is calling us to come in at a different timeline to do something that is most needed in this moment. Whatever we recorded before, I guess wasn't the message we were meant to share. So here we are.
Yeah, twice the pleasure, twice the fun.
It's so good to see you. We were just talking before I hit record about, what we're in right now in these times. And then it became very clear as to why we're recording now. This culmination, this coming to a head, it feels like a point in time, tipping point, whatever we want to call this, of preparation, of seeing at a certain level of clarity to go, aha, okay, this is what's happening, at least in your own field, and what you're being called to step up into right now in these times. So, what's been calling you? What have you been feeling like is the most potent thing for you right now?
I've been called to a particular clientele. And that clientele is sensitive, empathic beings that are heart centered, highly attuned. And it just came into my awareness very recently, actually, during a client meeting, that I do what I do because I was raised by a sensitive woman and I am sensitive. And I saw that my mother was at the effect of her sensitivity. And so, what that looks like is often empathic people don't know where they end and others begin. And they absorb other people's energy because we are more porous. We are like membranes, like cellular membranes. Energy comes in, energy goes out. And if the sensitive person doesn't understand that very fundamental thing, that we have to clear our energy, we have to have a certain level of clarity about who we are, what our center is, because we are so powerful. We read information before we even enter a room. We understand how someone else is feeling. We also have to understand how we are feeling so that we know who we are in our being. Otherwise, we absorb everything from society, from our familial relationships, from our constellations. And so, because we are so powerful, if we don't understand how to use it, we become at the effect. And what that often means is that we end up being on medication because we're receiving these signals that we don't understand. We're receiving these sensations in our bodies that don't go away. We're receiving touch. We're receiving psychic information. And so, because I saw my mother work through that for her entire life, bless her heart, I understand now through my own interaction with spirit that I am here to teach people to learn to use these abilities, to use this sensitivity, because the world is changing. We need to know what our own sense of self is, because the world is very ready to tell us what we are. And so, especially with technology, we are outsourcing everything to doctors, to politicians, to religious figures. We have all of that within ourselves. We just have to find it because it's there, but it's buried underneath so much that oftentimes we don't know where to begin.
Yeah, to have your level of sensitivity be able to be a mirror for other people, because, like you said, we all have that within us. The sensitivity that some people might call psychic or intuitive, or even I would say at the level of mental illness of schizophrenia, where people seem like they're out of their mind, they're crazy, but truly they're bringing in information, they're seeing, hearing, knowing things that we normal people maybe aren't actually perceiving. And in a society like ours, it's not valued. So they just get pushed into crazy person box. And like you said, medicated often. And that medicalization that it started certainly with, I think, those that were, let's call it more severely sensitive. I didn't even want to use the term severely mentally ill because there's not an illness. I believe the sensitivity is just so high, but they were persecuted But now that persecutions come to people who just have intuition or just feel a little bit more than other people. It's like you're being hardened now through the system, through the drugs, through the authoritarianism, through the technology. So you mentioned technology. Now we have AI giving us information, telling us things. I mean, the internet was doing that already before, but now AI, the insidious thing about it to me is that it's telling you what you want to hear, what it has derived as something to build rapport with you that you want to hear, and just affirming you rather than giving you unbiased information like, oh, you asked this, here's a bunch of answers and you just dig through it all. It's like, oh, well, let me get to know you and then let me tell you exactly what you want to hear. So we are just getting put more and more into these bubbles, but disconnected from our actual power, from our actual lines to truth.
For sure. For sure. I want to go back to one thing. It's interesting that you picked up on the fact that my mother was schizophrenic. You said specifically schizophrenia, and that's exactly what her medical diagnosis was. I know something very different because I remember sitting next to her in church, and she couldn't sit next to other people because she would feel their energy very specifically and very potently. So I just wanted to mention that because those are your psychic senses. That is your energetic awareness. That is your discernment that brought that to you. So we all have telepathy. We are all picking up on the consciousness that is both within and around us all of the time. Going to the technocratic aspect of it, if we do not understand how to use our discernment, then things like AI that have been around, it's been around for decades, but the way it's being used now has really turned up the level of need of discernment for everyone. And I look at AI the same way I look at a butter knife or the television, right? Back when there was only radio, people thought the television was such an evil instrument. And now it's ubiquitous. And again, the television is being used, is weaponized as well. So these things that, like a butter knife, can be used to spread butter on your toast, or it can be used as an instrument of destruction. We all have to be able to receive discernment. And that is something that the larger, the greater world will not teach us. That is why it is my duty, my pleasure. This is what I'm here for, to show people how to harness all of their energy, use their discernment, become present in their body, utilize their awareness to understand what is right for them, to discern what the next move is, and to understand that it begins with each person. The change that we want to see is in here. It's within me. It's within you. It's within the people that I teach one-on-one. And so nothing changes until we change.
It's interesting, this call to the light, to bear more light in the world, always coming up in times where there's greatest darkness. There's this beautiful balancing act and equilibrium that we get to experience here. And it may not seem like it's connected on the same timeline, but over a larger time span, it really is. You see how even the proliferation of so many mental health apps and mental health discussions, and everybody talks about trauma now.
Yep.
It's on the one hand, how beautiful that there's all this help for people and all this awareness and less of a stigma. And then at the same time, on the other side of that coin is like, well, why are people so quick, let's say, to turn to an outside source for their own mental stability, their own mental discernment? So you've got all of this proliferation, again, of a system creating solutions for us at a time when people do absolutely need it. But then, just like the butter knife analogy, it's like, well, is that the right tool for you? Is that actually the right tool that's going to help you best butter the toast or best understand yourself and understand who you really are? Versus, oh, well, we can tell you who we are because we, the scientists, have studied this and we give you this label and this is what you are. And then people start to identify with that and say, oh, I'm A, blank. And there's a certain amount of empowerment that goes along with that, I think, for people who are not quite ready to fully step into their power. They kind of get this side power from a diagnosis or from a labeling. So how do we get to a point then where we trust ourselves enough to say, okay, I'm ready to be the discernment filter. I'm ready to be the one who makes those decisions for myself. So how did that unfold for you, or what would you share with a client of yours?
Such a good question. It's multi-layered. The way I would describe it today, the way I would explain it, would be to say that we can use micro rituals, micro movements to get to where we want to be. A lot of people have to hit rock bottom, or a lot of people have to have a very deep, dark night of the soul. And I just said, I no longer want to work at the job that I'm working at. I could go to another career similar to it, or I could figure out what it is that makes my soul sing. Just in asking that question, the universe, source, God, however you choose to identify, will really step in and hand you more information that is in alignment with what your soul is asking for, right? Because it's my consciousness speaking to the greater consciousness, which is really one thing, but that's the beginning. Understanding there's something greater here for me. For me, it was a job. For other people, it's health. Some people, it's relationships. Other people, it's where they live, right? It's asking the question, is my soul singing here? Or am I just wading through things that I don't prefer? And from there, you just follow your highest excitement, and that will lead you to the next thing. I follow Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, and that is from him. And it has never steered me wrong. And sometimes you follow your excitement and it peters out, and that's okay. Another one will be right there, just behind it, to help you move to the next level. And this is not about enlightenment, right? This is about self-awareness. I am bringing in more light so that I can live more fully in my body. I am not trying to reach some high pedestal somewhere. I am living through my senses, through my vessel, utilizing my light for the greater good.
Okay, you started with the job dissatisfaction, said this can't be it. I've got to ask these big questions and make a change. And for the audience, for you, it could be, as Yolanda was saying, some other entry point, and let that be the entry point. Don't go, okay, well, I've got to wait until I'm in a ditch somewhere and I'm at that total rock bottom. Your entry point could be just that you're starting to question. And whatever the question is around the life thing, then that question will continue to lead you into more questions, right? It's like they're never fully answered. There's just more and more questions arise. And all of those questions then are the thing that leads you, guides you into those next steps. So it's beautiful to ask yourself these questions and then be also the one that answers them.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? Not just asking. However, when it comes to tech, let's just say anything outside of ourselves, we can also use that as a way to reflect what's within us too.
For sure.
So sometimes we hear maybe on a TV show, or we read it in a book, or through a conversation with somebody else, the answer you absolutely needed of that question that you've been working through yourself. So it's not that we're in this alone, but we start to become this beautiful receptor antenna for all that information that exists out there. So how do you discern what's for you and what's not for you? Because a lot of information, as you said, comes in. So what do you take as, okay, yeah, this is this thing that I just overheard at a cafe or saw on the news. Oh, that was for me. That's for me and my highest truth. Or it's just information. What's your way of filtering that?
Well, this is where the magic happens. And this is where each individual person receives information differently. And this is really my favorite thing about what it is that I do. Each person is their own individual snowflake. So it goes beyond the clairs or the five senses. And how I discovered it for myself is that one day I was driving to work and I had driven this route thousands of times. And I look to my left and I see these trees waving in the wind, their leaves, the jacaranda trees. And I felt this sensation in my body. And I thought, that's so weird. Is that really happening? And I look over again, I see it, I feel it. And it wasn't external, it was internal. There were waves of energy. And I had been doing Kundalini activation process for a while. So I'm familiar with how it feels to have energy move through your body, but never when I looked at a tree. And so that was the beginning of me understanding how I receive energy and what my truth signals are, my yes and my no. I either feel expanded or I feel contracted. And other people are different. Some people get a touch on the top of their head. Some people feel a flash of energy cross over one side or another. Some people see colors. Everyone sees, feels, knows it in their own individual way. And so it's always so exciting for me to sit in a conversation with someone and listen to how they are speaking. Oh, yeah, I feel that. Or, yeah, I know that to be true. Or, I see what you're saying. They're telling me exactly how they receive information. None of these things are an accident. They just don't know how to place the awareness on what it is that they've been doing for a while so that they can understand how they receive their discernment, how they receive their information, and how they can use it in their lives. It takes a lot of presence.
Absolutely. Presence and you said it, that self-awareness piece of where what we're doing here is learning our own guidance system.
Mm-hmm.
And it is exciting and it is beautiful and it is the uniqueness that was conformed out of us through this systemization of education and systemization of, well, we've got to get everybody in line so they could go work in the factories and go be employees essentially. And not that there's anything wrong with being employed, but there's something wrong with the system of enslavement that goes on of our being that gets people to comply with things that they don't want to comply with. And it's even more insidious when it's something that done through little rewards versus punishments. That's when it starts to get even more insidious. So we get lulled into sleep and into a place of where we forget who we are. And that's what we mean about the awakening, right? That you are awakening to yourself. You're awakening to truth. Capital T truth, the truth of the universe, the truth of how and what we really are and how this all can operate when you just start to tap into it. So you help people tap into that by listening to them, the words that they use themselves. So for those of you listening, if that's something you even monitor your own speech, maybe someone else, a friend of yours could even tell you, oh yeah, you always use the word this, that, or the other thing. Start to discern for yourself. This is all like a scavenger hunt, right? It's like a fun, I believe, game of figuring it all out. And it's what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
Figure it
Absolutely.
all out.
And, the best is when someone comes to me before they are in their 11th hour. When someone is at their 11th hour, there is a lot of peeling back of the traumatic situations, and not so much the traumatic situations as it is the effect of the trauma, how humans hold it in their bodies, what it does to, after it affects our energy, what it does to our physicality. So if anyone is curious, that's the time. I help people at every level and at every spectrum, those that are curious and those that are at their 11th hour. But if you can come to your questions when it's a curiosity, that is the optimum time, when you have the bandwidth.
And we all are getting those whispers and those nudges and those opportunities all the time, aren't we? So what are some of the ways that for those who are not at the 11th hour, not at crisis, not at the rock bottom, but they're just living life, doing their thing. Maybe they're listening right now and going, yeah, I want to get to know myself better. I want to fine tune or really hone these gifts. That would be cool. What are some of the ways that they could just start to do that and incorporate it into their daily life?
Following your highest excitement. If something excites you, it's for you. If something piques your curiosity, if it goes ping, if it's like a notification on your phone, right? It's an internal notification. It's something that catches your awareness and makes you excited and you want to know more. You're drawn to it. So when we can allow ourselves to really feel the sensations in our bodies, the desire that's moving us from one moment to the next moment, that is really what is telling us that, hey, there's something else here. This is beyond your surface wanting. There's some cellular level that's working here. So moving towards that, being curious about it, curiosity is such a powerful awareness. It leaves the judgment behind. It leaves shame, guilt, anything by any of the lower frequency energies. Curiosity is so fresh. It's like a childlike curiosity. Oh, I wonder what these berries on this tree taste like. Be careful there. But I remember doing that. I remember having a tea party as a little girl and like putting these little berries on the saucer and, making my mud patties, but just being curious about it and wonderment and moving in that direction. That is really such a beautiful and holy place to move from.
It is. And there's a lot in this world that numbs us to that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
numbs us to the ability to even know what feels like our highest excitement. I see it as kind of like a flat lining of energy that happens when we put our trust and our full attention externally to get all the cues, the rewards, the everything from out there. And then when that's not feeling good enough, we start to take the meds from out there. We start to take the alcohol from out there, anything to try to help the situation. I believe that anybody who ends up becoming an alcoholic or drug addict, all they're doing is trying to feel bliss, feel good. And feeling good then ends up having its consequences when it's coming from that outside source. So when we start to inner source, we don't even need those things anymore. I had my period of it. I mean, it's everywhere through all sorts of different substances and things. It could be addicted to your phone. So we're dealing with a lot of that in this realm, a lot of numbing out, a lot of avoidance, and a lot of distraction, which then puts people in a state of being where they can't even feel what feels good. I'd love to know your opinion on what comes first. Is it that you stop drinking alcohol or stop looking at your phone? Or is it that you go within and start to understand who you really are, and then those things fall away? Because it's kind of a different starting point for facing this. And I'm not sure if this is something that you've dealt with yourself or with your clients. Do you have any opinion on that?
Sure, it's really a chicken and egg kind of a situation, and it really depends on where you are. My path to spirituality has been a long one. I would jump into spirituality and do a yoga practice and go to meditation, and then I would be out of it and go hang out and party with my friends and go bar hopping. And then I'd have a little crisis. I'd break up with someone, and then I'd go inside and I would do all of the things and I would do the chanting and I would have a new practice. And then the call to hang out with my friends would come. And then for the next 6 months, I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I think the way it happened for me was I thought, okay, I have this vacation to look forward for. Now I'm done with the vacation. I'm only looking forward to holidays. And every weekend was I have to go to Costco and buy some alcohol, or I'm going to this party. So, I'm going to make this signature cocktail. Anything can be numbing, right? Exercise can be numbing. Meditating can be numbing. So there's not one thing that can keep us from ourselves. In moving through the path, what we understand is this feels like I'm doing it too much. I don't want to go into deep meditation to not be in the world. And I also have clients who are like, I hate Earth. I just want to be with my star family. And I remember going through that myself. And at some point, Spirit gently guided me back and said, but you chose to be here. So don't numb by going into a deep, powerful meditation. It's all the same. The big, powerful meditations, the gentle, soft, short meditations. You're accessing consciousness. And so it's a matter of just continuing on your path, continuing to open, having discernment for other things and yourself. And it's always a moment to be able to investigate your motives. What's calling me to this? Am I avoiding something by doing this thing? Good thing, bad thing, neutral thing. Everything is just what it is. Everything is neutral. Depends on how you use it.
Yeah, going back to that butter knife example, right? It's just laying there on the table.
Yeah.
It's just a neutral object. It's not
Yeah.
doing anything to hurt
Yeah.
anybody. It's until you wield it with an intention, right? Then you are putting that intention into it. So what is the intention then of the taking that drink or the going into your 3-hour meditation or your yoga class or your run or your
Right.
working your butt off to grow a company? What's the intention there?
Right.
Is that leading you to more of those higher frequencies of joy and bliss and peace and love that we absolutely are seeking here? It's not an escape. It's to me, a birthright that we came into the world that way. When you look at a baby, it's like literally a bundle of joy. That term is absolutely the most fitting thing. You're just like, oh my God, you are perfectly joyful and wondrous. And they are the embodiment of love.
Absolutely.
So if that's all been stolen from us, or this whole realm is designed to take that away so that we can get back to that, and that's the game, whatever the reasoning is, the goal is the same. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to where we get to feel that, be that, operate from there. Because when you do, everything around you just becomes better, doesn't it? It's like all the stuff that was hard before becomes easeful. And all the stuff that felt stressful, it's like, no worries about that. And all the stuff that maybe seemed really difficult to attain also all start to just flow beautifully. So I feel like that's when you start to reap the rewards at that stage. But we were talking about the stage of when we're maybe spending time distracting, numbing, avoiding. And what you said is a perfect reminder to the listeners that it's a complete journey. It's not like you can go take one yoga class or go do one 6-month course or read one book and all of a sudden, boom, you're awakened and you're in bliss and you're done. This is what we're doing here. So get on board, get in the roller coaster. Let's go. And just have fun with all the ups and downs of it.
I mean, you couldn't have said it any more perfectly. It's so true. This is why we're here. We are here to have the human experience. We are light in human vessels that are here to experience the joy, the pleasure, the sorrow, all of the emotions. This is why we are incarnated. And so the belief that when I'm awakened, I will not feel certain things. No, you feel them more. You feel them more because your spirit is more alive. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to feel. It's a beautiful thing to have access to emotions. And that's the thing that's so dangerous about our culture now, and so many things within our culture, is that we are programmed. We are programmed to numb and to avoid discomfort and to not have critical thought because someone else will do it for us. But this process is a process of coming back to your body, coming back to your feeling, coming back to sensation. Your body is a conscious organism in and of itself. Every tooth, every organ, every hair on your body has its own consciousness. So when we can use all of that to live in the world, this is when we really change. We change ourselves. Other people see the change in us. They decide to change themselves. They watch a podcast, The Everyday Mystic. They love what you have to say. They tell a friend. And that is how we create the world that we want to live in. We become the world that we want to live in.
I love that. We become the world we want to live in. And it isn't that we're saying that it's easy, right? We can sit here now from this place of where you and I have evolved to and say, oh, well, this is what we know and see and understand at this stage of the game. But I've been in deep, dark places of where I didn't want to live anymore. I've been in those places where it's so desperate that you just want to give it all back. Say, I don't want this, I'm done. And I've been in those places where I've hated myself. All of that's certainly tied in together. Hated myself, hated life, hated this whole experience. And what you said earlier about you just keep going, just keep going. There's no secret formula. You just keep going. Just take that next step that feels something, as you mentioned, right? A little bit more exciting than maybe the dark, deep depression that you're in right now. It doesn't have to be this trip around the world and I just won $10 million. It doesn't have to be this excitement. That's another thing I think within the programming of this matrix is that we are given through media and through all of those stories of celebrities and royalty and all the things that our eyeballs are put on to say, this is the pinnacle of excitement. This is the pinnacle of vibrancy. Like, you should feel this way. I want to feel that level of excitement over looking at a flower. You get to that point of where you actually know yourself and where you're actually coming into that truth. You do look at a flower and feel the same enrichment as you would of winning $10 million.
Yeah.
Look at how beautiful this is.
Yeah.
Look at what we're part of. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. So taking whatever that next step is, right? Taking those little baby steps, opening yourself up to the possibility of what could be behind that next door, could be through that next portal, could be around the corner, which does take that curiosity, as you mentioned, of wanting to explore, because this ain't it, whatever it is that you're in. And we're all in some stage of that at all times. Even I still feel that. And I guess if I didn't feel that anymore, I'd be like, it's okay. We're ready to go, ready to now depart this earth plane. And cool. All right. We did our job here this time. So for those who want to learn more from you, want to experience some of your magic and learn really truly more about themselves by sitting with you or reflecting with you, what are some of the ways that they can do that and get to experience some of your Yolanda magic?
I am Trinity Holistic Hypnosis on Instagram. I do one-on-one hypnotherapy. I do shadow work. I have 2 premium containers, Trinity Transformation Activation, where I take sensitive people, empathic people, and I think everybody is sensitive and empathic in their own way, in a certain way. We just have it we're numbed to it through culture and society and family lineage. But in Trinity Transformation Activation, or TTA, I help people to peel back those layers of distortion and patterning and conditioning so that they can live through their own essence and feel themselves again in the world and make decisive action and how to discern what their body is saying to them. And then there's my other premium container, crystalline wave activation. That's the next iteration. You have become the wave form instead of the particle. You speak to your future self to seed what is happening in your day or your week or your month or your year. You uncover the person you truly are, and you get to live from that frequency all of the time. So there are two parts.
I love that. And I love that you just brought that up, because we've been in this conversation mostly talking about what shaped us, what programmed and put us to sleep and hypnotized us, but in a negative way.
Yeah.
What did that in the past? And now what you're talking about is essentially understanding of our quantum nature, where we can actually start to write our futures
Mm-hmm.
and create and become what we want to become what we truly are. So let's talk about that for a moment. We can come into this understanding of ourselves as this powerful being to then have the ability or abilities
Mm-hmm.
to be able to shape our future or our future and have it look the way we want it to look.
Mm-hmm.
This again is also our birthright. I believe it's something that we absolutely all can do. But someone like you can help them open up
Mm-hmm.
to that understanding of themselves. What's one thing that someone who might feel like, oh, I'm there to this point of where, I've understood my stories. I'm not my stories. I am my possibility, let's say. They're feeling like that's where they're at. What are some of the things in their daily life that they could do to start to really fine tune those gifts?
One of the favorite things that I work with now is going into light. And going into light is essentially wave, form, or particle, like the slit experiment. And that once you observe energy, either it becomes a particle as opposed to a wave. And so going into light is just training your focus on an object. It could be a tree, a plant. I happen to use a mandala or a yantra rather. And so focusing my light on this yantra, I get to observe the light of all things as long as I can stay in wave formation. And that is when I am not experiencing my body, I'm experiencing my light. I'm experiencing the light of all things. The more readily and easily that you can do that, more easily you can toggle between dimensions. The more easily you can see the structure behind the physical forms that we all are, because everything is 99.999% empty space. You get to see the empty space. You get to see the light. You get to see the sacred geometry behind things. Is that something that everybody can just do? You can certainly practice it. It does take a while though. But if you were to just sit and focus on your favorite plant, ultimately your favorite plant would start to speak to you. The consciousness of your plant would start to speak to you. You would be able to see the aura of the plant. You would be able to see the form underneath the plant, the geometry. So that's one of my favorite things to do and to teach.
That's beautiful. And you said it earlier, and really it's just been a culmination of thought within this conversation that it is about feeling it. So
Mm-hmm.
working to get out of your mind if we're thinking hard about, I want to see this aura,
Mm-hmm.
I want to see it so badly,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
you think yourself out of experience.
correct,
So this is about dropping into the body and
correct.
actually trusting those feelings and allowing that to happen rather than
Mm-hmm.
trying to will it with our minds into happening. And our mind is a powerful structure within
Mm-hmm.
our being, but it also can trick us and it can think it's right all the time when it isn't necessarily bringing in the right signals. It is, again, about getting back into that body trust and that embodiment. So before we leave today, what's a practice that you might do yourself or suggest to others to get into embodiment, to get into their bodies, so that so many of us are floating out there in our heads, not even knowing it, not even understanding that we're operating from just this like head up situation. How do we drop in to the body? How can we do this on a regular basis?
I would really like to place an emphasis on the fact that we are taught to be in our minds and that society is doing us a disservice by placing an emphasis there. Our bodies hold libraries of wisdom. Our soul inhabits our bodies. It inhabits our minds too, but if we use only our mind without utilizing the wisdom of the body, then our ego, and not that the ego is a bad thing, but it is our survival instinct, right? Our mind is really only trying to keep us alive. So when you want to put together an IKEA cabinet, absolutely use your entire mind force. When you are trying to intuit the world and live through your soul's essence, utilize your body. And so one perfect practice is I set an alarm on my phone, and it goes off at 10:10. It goes off at 2:22 in the afternoon, 5:55, and it reminds me to check in. What am I feeling right now? Am I hungry, happy, thirsty? Do I need a break?
Yeah.
And sometimes I need to go ground. And so that's another thing that people can do. Just go put your feet, your bare feet on the earth. The invention of rubber soled shoes separates us from the earth. It separates us from all those beautiful, wonderful electromagnetic frequencies. Sunglasses keep us from solar plasma. So all of these things are keeping us from it. I'm not going to say that they were created to keep us from it. That's up for conjecture. But when we can come back to grounding, seeing the sun first thing in the morning and as it's setting, we can remind ourselves to come back to the body, come back to the breath, understand how we feel in the moment, be present, and use that awareness to fuel the next segment that's coming up.
Yeah, there's a reason why I think in most dystopian movies it's super dark and maybe the sun was even blotted out or
Yeah.
everybody's in these industrial boxes
Yeah.
and completely separate. And we don't want that to be our future. We want our future to be connection to this home while we're here, connection to our body home and how we inhabit it and get to live most fully that way. Can we live and survive in this sort of dystopian hellhole kind of situation? I'm sure we could, but we're not here to just survive, are we?
We are not. We are here to thrive and use our creativity. And that's one of the things that I love best about what it is that I do. Taking someone from surviving in their lives, to creating in their lives.
Well, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I feel the energy of creation here with us. I feel that beautiful waveform of light and beingness here with us. And I know that everyone tuning in also feels that. So thank you so much for sharing your light and being a beacon for us in this world. I'll have all the links to all your stuff in the show notes. Thank you so much again, sister.
Thank you so much. So lovely to spend time with you again. And I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Me too.